Hey guys, I hope all of you are doing great and staying safe at home. I'm Ekta, and today, as a part of HSBC initiative, I'm going to take a session on home gardening. We will try and talk about some easy to grow edibles, vegetables, spices and herbs that you can grow right from your kitchen. You don't have to go anywhere to buy seeds. I will also try and share some easy to grow indoor plants and how you can care for them. So let's jump into our video and first talk about what are the basic things that you need at home to start gardening today. Number one is a pot. Now this is a standard pot. This is a medium size plastic pot and this is 11 inches in depth. In the world of gardening, you would often hear people saying 6-inch pot, 11-inch pot, 20-inch pot. These inches actually were referring to the depth of the pot. The diameter of the pot comes proportional to that. So you can use any medium size pot like this, or you can go bigger than this as well. For edibles, I recommend using big pots. The bigger the pot you have, there will be more soil in it, which means there will be more nutrients in it. As a result, the fruit or the vegetable that you grow in that pot will be way bigger than when you grow a plant in, let's say, such small of a pot. So this is tulsi plant growing in about 5-inch pot. I think it's 4 to 5 inch. And if you grow a vegetable, let's say brinjal in it, the size of the brinjal is going to be way smaller. So I recommend at least going for an 11-inch pot or more than that. For indoor plants, however, you can go for a smaller pot because all that we are interested is in foliage for them and not the vegetable. The second thing you need is soil. So here I have a well-draining soil. What do I mean by well-draining? It means that it shouldn't hold water for long. The clay content in soil should not be very high. Whenever you add water, the water should quickly start coming out from the base. This means that there will be enough air spaces or air cavities for the roots of the plant that you're growing in this pot to breathe. If you do not have enough air spaces or air cavities, then the roots will start decomposing. They will start rotting and the growth of the plant will be stunted. So you need soil which is well draining. Now the question is, how do you make the soil that you have well draining? Use any kind of soil that you have access to outdoors and in equal amount mix coco peat to it. What is coco peat? These are coconut shavings compressed in form of a block. Whenever you add water, it gains that moisture and expands in size. When you mix coco peat with your garden soil, any kind of regular soil, this helps the soil to gain moisture, retain moisture for longer and also maintain air spaces. It reduces the density of soil. So I highly recommend adding some form of coconut shavings or coco peat in your soil. Now the third thing you should add in your soil is compost or a fertilizer. I will talk about fertilizer or compost later in the video in depth. The third thing that you need to start gardening at home is a watering can. So this is a cute watering can I have. If you don't have access to this, you can also use a bottle, and the cap of the bottle make a couple of holes. Basically, this watering can or the cap of this bottle ensures is that the water does not fall with great pressure on the plant. When the plant is young, especially the stem of the plant is very delicate. Now, if you don't reduce the pressure of water and if you use a mug and you directly add water, that might hurt or completely damage the plant. So you don't want that to happen. I feel watering cans are very highly underappreciated. People just completely forget about them. But if you are starting gardening or if you have a couple of plants, I think investing in a good watering can could be a great idea. Now let's shift gears to edibles that you can grow at home. You'll find most of these spices, herbs or vegetable scraps in your kitchen. So the first on my list is tomato. This is something I highly recommend every time whenever I talk about vegetables because it's easy to grow. Of course, you don't have to buy the seeds and does not require a lot of care. All that you have to do is take any ripe tomato, which is a little soft, cut it into slices. The thinner the slices, the better, because even one slice of this tomato has a couple of seeds. So when they'll germinate, there'll be too many seedlings in one pot. Just bury the slice in soil. and then let it sprout in a space that gets about 3 to 4 hours of direct sun. Now, germination of these seeds can take up to a week or even 10 days. One important thing to ensure at this stage is that neither you're watering the soil too much, that it shouldn't be soaked in water all the time, nor it should be allowed to be completely dried. If you let it completely dry out, or if you let it be too moist, then the seeds will not germinate. So one way to check is, in fact this works with most of your plants to judge if you need to add water or not. Touch the soil and see if it sticks to your finger or not. For example, here it's powdery and it's not sticking to my finger, it's a good time to add water. So for your tomato as well, do the same thing. Once the seeds germinate and they have reached about 5 to 6 leaf stage, then I would say that keep only one plant per pot. And then you can let this plant grow in about 11 to 12 inch pot. Water whenever the soil dries, and you would see the flowers and fruits coming within 40 to 50 days or even 60 days. It actually depends where you are staying, but in an average 2 months this plant will start giving you fruit, and this will do well anywhere in India. Okay, the second plant or the second edible on my list is mint. Take a couple of mint stems from your grocery bag and make a cut. Use a scissor or use a knife to make a cut at a node. Now, what is a node? Node is that point or the junction in any plant or any stem from where a branch is coming out or from multiple leaves are coming out. So for our mint stem, where 2 leaves are coming out, this is a node. Underneath this, we make a cut. What this will do is, when you put the stem in water, it will release growth hormone which will help in developing roots. Once the roots come out, it should take about 6-7 days. Then you plant this mint in soil. One pro tip at this point I would suggest is do this indoors. Many people try cuttings, right, for money plant or for the mint, and when they put them in soil, they say that the cutting is dying out. What should I do? See, whenever you're growing a plant in water, life is very easy for that plant. Water, moisture is easily available, right? Nutrients are easily available in dissolved form. When you shift this from water to soil, life gets a little difficult. Nutrients are not that easily available in dissolved form. Water is also not that easily available, so the plant undergoes some form of stress and shock. To help that plant sustain those conditions, I would say that protect your plant from intense sun and do this shifting indoors. It will help you to have successful propagation of mint. Very soon, probably in a month or so, your pot will be full of mint and you can start harvesting it for your drinks or for your salad or for just topping your desserts as well. The third edible on my list is lobia. It's black-eyed pea that you can either use in form of dal, lentils, or you can just harvest the beans in green form and use it in vegetable cooking. So take a couple of seeds, put them in soil. You can start them in a tray like this, or you can start them in a big pot, depends on what you have available easily. When you start a plant in a tray from seeds, let a couple of leaves grow in it and then transfer it into a bigger pot. And for lobia, if you give it good amount of sun and a little support to climb up, within 30 days or so, it will be a big plant which will also start growing pods or beans on it. If you are a beginner and if you have never tried gardening but you still want to grow some edibles at home, lobia is your plant. You will find it in lentils in your kitchen. Just put them in a pot and let it grow. It doesn't require any care. You don't have to look after it in any particular way. It doesn't require very specific attention, and it doesn't even require any fertilizer. No compost, because it's a legume. It in fact improves the quality of soil because it can fix nitrogen. So one thing you have to only ensure for this plant is don't let it dry out. For that, as I told you before, touch the soil, see if it sticks to your finger. If it doesn't stick to your finger, add water. Otherwise, don't add water. That's it. Pretty simple actually. Okay, next plant on my list is methi or fenugreek. You can use the fenugreek or methi seeds that you have in your kitchen spices. Spread them in soil in any fashion. The container should be at least 5 to 6 inch deep or deeper than that, and bury them in an inch deep soil. These seeds will sprout within 3 to 4 days. It can also take a week. For methi, I would say that ensure you give it good amount of sun, which is about 4 hours of sun. Directly the sun should be falling on the plant, and water whenever the soil dries. In summers, in fact, you can water all your plants every day because it gets really hot in India, especially in North Indian plains. Loo is also a phenomena that dries out the space heavily. There are dry winds and it can get very hot for the plants. You can also use some form of shade because these are leafy vegetables. They will lose water very quickly. So just ensure that you'll allowing the soil to be moist at all times for methi, and it'll be ready in a month or so to be eaten. You can grow it anywhere in India right now. The rains are also coming and methi does really well at this point. Very similar to methi, you can also grow coriander, which is dhania. The only difference here is that with dhania, break it open a little. You can use a tissue paper, wrap it around, and just beat it up a little. This will help to improve the germination of these seeds. Like methi, we spread it in any fashion in soil. A container you need is about 5 to 6 inch deep, and then your seeds will germinate within a week or so. Coriander is also a plant that will be ready to be harvested or ready to be eaten within 30 to 40 days or so. Now, if you have space problem, for example, I stay in Mumbai and I don't have a luxury of a huge garden. I have a very tiny balcony. All these edibles that I shared with you can be very easily grown in a balcony. If you do not even have a balcony and you just have a window, I would say grow lobia because it just needs vertical space. You can also grow coriander or methi because they need very small pots. If you have access to a huge garden, I would say then tomatoes would do really well in your space and you would have like kilos of tomato every month coming out. Apart from edibles, I also suggest keeping a couple of indoor plants at home. Why do you need indoor plants first of all? These plants are great at removing lots of contaminants that you find indoors, and they also give you a sense of calm, right? When you see so much greenery around you, it makes you peaceful. So I highly recommend trying out a couple of indoor plants. Now I have 5 indoor plants in my list that are very easy and simple to care for. The first one in my list is a ZZ plant. Now this plant is one which does not even require a lot of watering. You can water it once in 14 days or so. It does not require a lot of light. You can keep it in low light conditions or you can also keep it in a bright space. Just ensure that direct sun is not falling on this plant. Otherwise it will become black and it will start dying. So you don't want that to happen. Keep it in a hallway which probably doesn't get any light. It will still do well. What do I mean by no light or low light? Low light, basically I'm referring to a space where you need tube light or some form of bulb or light, artificial light even during the day. So this is one plant that will do well in that kind of conditions as well. For its care, just ensure that you're watering once in 2 weeks or so. Why? Because it's a succulent, meaning it's a plant which is used to low watering conditions. Now, if you saturate it with water or you keep adding water every 2 days or so, this will kill the plant because it's not used to wet feed. That's all. That's all you need to keep in mind to care for this plant. You can also propagate it from a cutting and then you can plant that cutting in soil in a small pot. It'll take a couple of weeks for that propagated or that cutting to grow new branches, but once it gains speed, gains growth, it'll grow very beautifully. Within a month or so you'll have a couple of branches of this plant. You don't have to add a fertilizer that readily either, and that's it. That's all you have to do for this plant. The second indoor plant on my list is a rubber plant. There are a variety of rubber plant in the market. There is one regular burgundy one and there is one variegated one. You can use any one of them, you can keep any one of them. These are Ficus elastica. There's just variation of each other. So this is the variegated one I have here. It is a great air purifier, meaning that it can remove air pollutants very easily. Air pollutants such as benzene, formaldehyde. These are chemicals that are present indoors because not only because of the vehicular pollution, but also because of the indoor furniture, the plywood furniture, or the detergent that we use, or the grease or the paints that we use at home. All that you have to do for care is just ensure that the soil is moist. Remember, we talked about touching the soil and checking if it sticks to your finger or not. For example, here it sticks to my finger, so we won't add any water at this point. We will let it dry out and then we add water. Just ensure that you're not letting the soil dry out completely, because this is a plant that requires a little moist soil. For improving the growth of the plant, also add compost or fertilizer every 20 to 30 days, as the nutrients tend to leach out very quickly from soil with water. And whenever you water, water thoroughly, which means that whenever you add water, let it seep from the bottom of the base. This will ensure that the entire root system of the plant gets water or moisture. And if you're keeping your plants indoors, you can also use like a bucket, something like this, or a second pot which does not have a hole, so that whenever you add water to the main pot, it seeps out into the second pot, and this will help you to keep your space clean. And keep this in a place that gets about 3 to 4 hours of sun. So our house is west facing, which means that we get a good amount of afternoon sun. Rubber plant does really well in our home. So if you have a space similar to ours, rubber plant is one plant that will do really well. The third plant, the third indoor plant in my list is peace lily. One problem with this plant is that the tips start to brown. This is a typical sign of irregular watering. That means that sometimes you forget to water this plant, sometimes you overwater this plant. So one way to ensure that you're watering this plant appropriately is that, let's say today's day 0, you watered it. Now wait for the leaves to droop, which means that the leaves, as they lose water, they will start falling down. Once you see them drooping, only then add water. This will help you develop an intuition on how and when you need to add water to your plants. I can tell you that, for example, in Mumbai, I water my plants, all my indoor plants, every third day. But even within Mumbai, the weather conditions, the microclimate of everyone's house could vary, right? The wind velocity could be different, the sun intensity could be different, ambient temperature could be different. So for everybody, it differs. It differs on the microclimate of your space. So this way of letting the leaves droop works very well for sensitive plants. For this plant, the care is all about just watering. Rest, you can keep it in medium light place or even low light conditions, and you can add a fertilizer every 30 days or so. It's important to fertilize your plants. Why? Because see, this plant is growing in a pot, in a substrate, soil, which provides nutrients. As you keep watering the plants, the nutrients leach out, they dissolve in water and they leave the pot. And some nutrients are of course taken up by the plant. So as the nutrients deplete in soil, you need to regularly add more to it. And for that reason, we add some form of a fertilizer or some form of compost to it. The question is, can you make compost at home? Yes, you can make your own khad at home. All that you need is some kitchen waste. And by doing this, you're just not making your own compost, organic compost at home. You're also contributing to the environment in a very positive way. In our country, I'm sure you would have seen these landfills just outside all the metro cities, these heaps and mountains of garbage which is extremely smelly. You can reduce the pressure on this landfill by removing your wet waste from your dry waste. and the wet waste you can use to make your khad, which you can use for your plants, right? So to start composting at home, once you have collected a week's kitchen waste, in kitchen waste you can include any kind of cooked food, any kind of uncooked food except for meat and bones. These are things that do not decompose very easily and it will take very long. It will make the compost bin also very smelly. Avoid these things. Apart from them, you can put anything in your compost bin and add a little bit of curd and some soil. Why are we adding curd and soil? Because they'll help introduce microbes that will digest this food and make it into khad or compost. So just ensure that when you're starting composting at home, add some curd. You don't have to add it every time, just at the beginning. Add like a bowl of curd and it'll help. If you don't have curd, you can also use buttermilk. And you will have your own khad or compost within a month or so. When your compost is in preparation, just remember to churn it every week. You can also use a compost bin such as this, which is called a khamba, or you can DIY your own compost bin using terracotta pots or a matka. Just make a couple of holes for aeration. Sometimes the compost bin gets very smelly, so I suggest that add dried leaves. When you add dried leaves, they are carbon and that will help to counter that smell. So for composting, if you have like a bucket of kitchen waste, add about 1/3 of that bucket dried leaves. They'll help to remove that smell and start composting in a storeroom or in a balcony which is outside your house. So in this process, you might also see some lizards and some insects. Don't be scared of them. They will in fact help you in this process of composting. The worms that you might see in the compost bin are actually good for your compost bin. So don't be scared of them and let them do their job. You will have good quality compost very quickly. Next plant on my list is a money plant, the Indian pothos or the golden pothos. Do not confuse it with the American money plant, it's very different in looks. And this is one plant which can grow very easily at home. You can also grow from a cutting. All that you have to do is, like we did in mint, take a cutting from under the node, snip it and add it to water. It will develop roots within a week or so. And once it develops roots, you can continue in water or you can shift it to soil. If you're wondering that will it be better to keep in soil or in water, actually it depends on how big of a plant do you want. If you want your money plant to grow very quickly and gain some length, then shift it to soil because the nutrient availability in soil is more. There is more scope for the plant to grow. In water, the plant is limited by nutrients. There is not enough nutrients to sustain a huge plant in water. So if you want a nice and clean plant in a small space, then I would say grow it in water, it'll do well. But if you want like a big bushy plant, then shift it to soil. Money plant is one plant, you can keep it outdoors and indoors. In fact, many a times people are confused when they look at a plant and they wonder that is this an indoor plant or an outdoor plant? See, if you think about it, every plant is an outdoor plant, right? It's just us humans who have brought in the plants indoors and defined it as an indoor plant, or we keep it outdoors and call it an outdoor plant. This distinction actually depends on the fact that where do you provide or where can you provide the necessary conditions for the plant to grow. For example, tulsi. Now, tulsi is a plant that requires a lot of sun. So if you have a space that gets about 3 to 4 hours of direct sun, good amount of sun, indoors, you can keep it indoors as well. But if you do not get sun enough for this plant, then you have to shift it outdoors and then it becomes an outdoor plant. So by definition, there's nothing as indoor and outdoor plant. It totally depends where can you provide the necessary conditions for that plant. For our money plant, one thing you have to ensure is that between waterings, let the soil dry. If you do not let the soil dry, and this is one mistake that most of beginners commit, that you don't let the soil dry. If you don't let that happen, the roots will start to rot. They won't be able to breathe and they will start to rot, decompose because of fungal growth. So to avoid that, let the soil dry out between waterings and your money plant will do very, very well. To make it bushier, something like this, one pro tip I have for you is clip the ends of it. Whenever you clip the ends of a plant, that stops the vertical growth of the plant and improves the lateral or the side growth of the plant, which is basically side branching. And this will make your plant look bushier and heavier. This in fact applies to most of the indoor plants. Your fiddle leaf fig, your rubber plant, if you see that the plant is becoming too lengthy and it doesn't have a lot of leaves, it doesn't look heavy, just chop the top of it. It'll be a little painful to do that for your plants, but trust me, if you try this out, it'll improve the side growth of the plant and also improves the rate of the growth of the plant. You can also add a moss stick. This is a moss stick and they do very well for money plant or any kind of trailing plant, because these trailing plants like monstera, philodendron and pothos have aerial roots. These aerial roots can absorb moisture from the air or from the substrate that they are attached to. So giving a support of moss stick will help your plant attain bigger and broader leaves. Now let's move on to the last indoor plant on my list, Aglaonema. This is actually a pink Aglaonema and there are various patterns and color shades of Aglaonema available in garden centers or nurseries. For its care, all that you have to do is ensure that the soil is moist at all times, the way we talked about rubber plant, right? And that's it. Keep it in medium light space. Do not keep it in too harsh sun or intense sun. The leaves will start curling. This also reminds me, a problem that everyone faces at some point if they're growing plants is that the leaves start curling. That is a sign that your plant is most likely in form of water stress. There's not enough water for the plant and this way it's trying to conserve its water. So whenever you see any plant curling leaves, ensure that you improve the watering for that plant. And as for our Aglaonema, just the medium light will be enough for it to improve its growth. Also add a fertilizer every 20 to 30 days. This will help the plant grow big and beautiful leaves. I hope these tips and tricks help you. If you are a beginner or somebody who has always shied away from growing their own plants, I feel this is the best time to give them a try. First, start with some easy indoor plants like your money plant. It is one plant you can't kill that easily, and even if it dies on you, but the roots are healthy, it might just come back to life. So give it a try. And then eventually, over time, you can shift to edibles. When you grow your own edibles, it gives you a sense of achievement. You must try them. And mint and tomato is something that anybody can try. They can grow anywhere. I hope you do give them a try. Thank you for watching.